Hey guys, you can now support this show and make your life 50% better by going to patreon.com/The System Is Down and signing up for the Downers Club, where you're going to get access to a plethora of wild, crazy, and often offensive bonus audio and video episodes of the show on a weekly basis. For more information, just go to patreon.com/The System Is Down.
The following is a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
Welcome to the System Is Down.
Well, it's that time again. It's another year has passed for the show, and Cole's rustling his phone around already and making a bunch of noise, but this is the Uncomfortable Powwow episode. It's what we started off the show doing for the very first episode 3 years ago. So it's now become a tradition, and this will be the third time doing it. So, of course, I'm joined by the original gang that was supposed to be on the show much more than they ever are, but, once a year or twice a year is perfectly fine. But I've got Cole, Nathan, and Craig here. Cole, we'll start with you. What's Cole doing? How have you been?
We're starting. So my prompt is how have I been?
How have you been?
Since what? Since last we spoke, or since last
since we got on this conversation a couple seconds ago.
I'm pretty good, man.
Just so you guys know, that these episodes are not our traditional way of running this show. This is just the celebration of a third year, so it will be what it will be, and it will not make sense most of the time. Nathan, what is your favorite color?
Purple.
Just keep things nice and unconventional. Craig, what is the capital of Minnesota?
Chicago.
Close enough. All right.
Okay, good.
So, traditionally, how we've done these episodes is we started it out getting everybody's thoughts on the three main topics of the show: conspiracies, politics, and religion.
St. Paul.
Thank you. I was going to wonder all night.
Conspiracies, politics, religion, and St. Paul. The four main topics that we talk about on this show. And just kind of getting the rundown of where everybody sits on those things and what their thoughts are. It doesn't have to take up the whole episode, and that's what I said last year. And then, of course, it did end up taking up the whole episode. So it can go where it goes, and it can be what it'll be. But that's what we'll start out with. And, just catch up and see how life is for all of the main initial group that has disbanded and gone their separate ways. So, how do you guys want to run this? Cole, what are you doing?
Giving us a preview.
That's pretty unprofessional of you to just stop the show to ask.
Yeah, well, it was also unprofessional of me to ask Craig what the capital of Minnesota was as his introduction, but here we are. So I suppose we can start out, we can just go like topic by topic, and we can, see what you guys think on each one. The most heated one, of course, is always the conspiracy stuff. So, Cole, we'll start with you. How do you feel about conspiracies these days? You're a 9/11 truther, and you spend all of your time watching YouTube videos, right? And you're currently in your bunker.
Yeah, it's my bunker. I'm going to find a place to set you down.
Not sure what that's supposed to mean.
So I'm not fucking with it.
All right.
Okay. Where am I at with conspiracies?
Yeah.
Name a new one.
A new one?
What's a new one? Heard of?
One that you've never heard of?
Yeah, like what's a recent conspiracy, Dan? Because I don't have a clue about any of them.
Oh, well, there's all the shootings and everything, like the Las Vegas shootings and stuff like that.
Okay, well, that's not okay. I'm up to date then, at least that far.
Sure,
but that's how I pay no attention to it.
Sure,
I don't.
Yeah, that's more what I'm curious about, not necessarily your thoughts on particular ones, but as people know who have listened, you and I have had some contention on that matter in particular. So, are you still as angry about conspiracies as you've been in the past?
I suppose if you interpret my reactions or opinions as anger, then yes.
Okay.
Why are you getting mad, bro?
Cole,
is it anger? I don't think it's anger. I think it's impatience.
Sure.
I don't give it really much. I don't put anything into it myself. So I think our contention lies in the fact that we're related and we're friends. And I think that you think a lot of really crazy things, and you think that I'm silly for not thinking that maybe they have some merit. But
you can think that I think you're silly, but that doesn't mean that I think you're silly. But maybe I do. Who knows?
I think that spending as much time as you like to on it is unhealthy, but that's where I'm not that interested in it,
sure.
And I basically don't follow any of it.
Sure. Don't care. That's totally fine.
I still think 9/11's a little weird. Something's weird with that.
Sure.
That's all I can really say. But I mean, the last time I spoke in depth about it was with you guys.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's not something
Except
that takes up any bit of your life in any way whatsoever. You just it just doesn't matter. It's fine.
When I hear them, I usually just roll my eyes and think, okay, all right.
All right.
I don't think I hear them very often now.
Yeah, I know. Maybe we should start off with that question. Other than episodes that you've been on, how many of you actually listen to the podcast ever?
For me, this is me.
Sure, anybody.
I listened to a handful from the earlier time. I think up to there was one about marriage that I listened to. I pick and choose which ones depending on who your guest is or what you're talking about. If you're talking about something that I think is a stupid conspiracy, I don't listen to it. So,
not even just for the entertainment factor, because there's a lot of conspiracies I don't pay any stock into, but I'll still listen to it just because it's an interesting version.
Same for me. There are guests that I'll have on that I completely disagree with, but I listen to it because I find it interesting.
Well, I just mean that I rarely even consume podcasts anymore myself.
Sure.
When I used to commute an hour plus a day, 2 hours a day, I listened to a lot of podcasts. It was, I couldn't get enough of it. Now I'm way behind on everything I used to listen to. So
right.
That definitely includes anything you make. So,
you're like, I used to listen to podcasts, now I don't. I never used to listen to your show, but I did listen to podcasts, and I'll use that as a cop-out answer for why I don't listen now.
No. I mean, how many podcast episodes do you have? I think, listen, I've probably listened to
103.
I've probably listened to 16, maybe?
All right.
Is that
about a tenth?
More than you thought?
Oh, it doesn't matter. I'm just curious.
No, I'm curious now to what you thought.
I assumed none as of the last year or two. So is that inaccurate assumption? You listen to no podcasts? No, I assumed that you listened to none of the episodes since the last time we've done this. Is that accurate or inaccurate?
You mean chronologically?
I don't know. Anything.
Yeah, I haven't listened to your show since the last time we've talked.
Okay.
I was going to say, he's just asking, have you listened to it in the last 365 days?
Oh.
All right. Cool. Nathan, do you ever listen to the show? Be honest. It's fine.
Very occasionally, but I almost always read the description and what it's about.
And then he's like, screw that, I don't want to listen to that.
Yeah, if it interests me, then...
We talk to you a lot, man. We know what you think about this stuff.
Well, yeah. Most of the episodes aren't me. They're the guest. Most of it's me exploring and trying to learn things from new people. So I know that, that's why Kayla hates it too, because she doesn't like listening to me talk. But I'd only talk about one fraction of the episodes.
Yeah, most of the time you talk to me about your guests anyway, but yeah, I mean, every couple months I'll see one that sounds interesting and I'll listen to at least part of it, if not the whole thing. But yeah, I'm behind on most podcasts I follow. There's only a couple that I, listen to almost as soon as it comes out. But
yeah,
I wouldn't say it's different than any of the others that are in my long list of podcasts to listen to.
While Nathan's talking, Craig's scrolling through all the episodes, pretend like I listened to that and that, and writing down notes.
I only listen to the ones that I'm in. No, I'm just kidding. I haven't listened to any podcast. I'm going to follow the trend. It's been a while since I've listened to a podcast. I usually listen to them when I'm working, but I've been working with people, so it's kind of rude. I mean, I love to throw my earbuds in and pretend like I'm not listening to somebody, but that generally gets
Just have white
frowned
noise
upon.
in your ears, just so you don't have to listen to people.
I have literally walked into places and just stuck earbuds in, not playing anything, just to keep people from talking to me before. It's a great deterrent from socialization. So, no, it's been a while. I've trying to think the last one. It's been probably a month was the last one I listened to of yours. It was really good, whatever it was.
Oh, thank
you. It was that good.
I appreciate it.
I can't remember. I remember texting you and telling you it was awesome and blah,
really
blah, blah.
You did it about, it was with the one guy about the one thing. I was really into that one.
That one. That's the one I listened to, too.
It was great.
No, I've been kind of like super busy lately, and I hate the fact that we canceled the anti-news or put it on hold, I guess, indefinitely. But it's kind of been good because I've been super crazy busy too. So
same here, and it's been very nice to catch up on things. But there's a lot of things to talk about in the world that we'll have to do here soon. But whatever. Yeah, and you know, to you guys' credit, I'm pretty well in the same boat. It's like podcasts go in waves. Like listening to podcasts, it seems like for everybody, it's like you listen for like a year straight, nonstop, consuming everything, and then you're like, oh, God, I need to listen to some music for a while and just take a break.
It's weird that as a podcast, its format is so much different that, you know, the person just gets, I get tired of that show when it comes to TV.
Yeah.
And they have to watch a different show or something, or a movie or whatever it is.
Right.
But with podcasts, it's almost like podcast is that one channel of entertainment in your life. You're like, well, I'm tired of podcasts now, as if they were all the same.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not all the same, obviously. You could listen to something completely different one day and from the next, but
yeah. And actually, I've personally been so busy and don't have time to listen to podcasts that I used to go back and listen to each episode before it comes out. Now, after the interview, I put it in the queue, and then I record the intros and outros, and I don't go back and listen to them. I'm just like, that's what it is. That's the conversation that's going out. So if there's something where I screwed up or something, that's just what it's going to be.
That's how little you're editing the show. You're not really listening. You're not listening back to every bit of it.
I don't listen to any of it lately. So
what do you need?
So I'm really surprised you didn't start that way. You know, that was what I thought.
It takes a bit to find a groove where you're comfortable and, you know, confident enough to be like, yeah, I had a conversation with a really important person and it went well. Now just let it sit there and give it to the world. It's fine.
Well,
let it go.
I have noticed already that this feels more conversational than any of the other times.
Sure.
Not that I think you let it affect the way that you guided or didn't guide the conversation, but it is what it is. It definitely feels more chill.
Yeah. So let's make it less chill because we're here to have uncomfortable conversations. Just kidding. No, I am curious.
Ruin everything.
Cole, kind of last year when we did this, your stance on pretty much all three of the things, and I don't mean this in a rude way, it was just kind of like, I don't really care about conspiracies, politics, or religion all that much. So we don't have to like spend a bunch of time digging into each one in particular, but I'm curious if you have like thoughts on any of those and where you're at, like religiously or on politics or anything like that.
I think I'll just start with the one that has much to say about it, which is oddly religion, even though I've got really no growth either. I don't think I have any net measurement for where I stand. I just think it's still the one that I constantly am searching, and it's evolving for me in what I think about it. But with more and more people I meet and talk to on a deeper level, or the few people I have that I can do that with, it just seems to all still sort of confirm to me. I know that, I mean, it doesn't confirm it, but I think I'm just leaning toward more of a universalist attitude.
Sure.
I think I have been the whole time. I just don't really know. I still don't have any real cornerstone-like moments to make me, commit to anything. So obviously I'm not searching a bunch of other religions because in general, I think religion is waste of time.
Sure.
I can see why people get something out of it. Sometimes I get the feeling that most of it is just unhealthy for people, but they choose to do it, and I think they have the right to do that. Mm-hmm. Definitely, I support, of course, religious freedom for everybody to discover whatever you like, believe whatever you like. But I just don't think I subscribe to any faith of any kind right now, and it's kind of scary to admit it, but that's what it is. So
sure,
I'm not. I want to say I lean Christian because I was raised Christian, and I just have no other choice.
Yeah.
Like I have a lot of morals that still line up with that lifestyle, but
mm-hmm.
a lot that don't too. A lot's changed for me on how I think about things day to day and that sort of thing. But overall, it's kind of been for a while now that just not really sure what I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's open to interpretation to anybody. And anybody that I do believe anybody that says they're certain of one thing or another based on religion, a holy book, what have you, is the person who's. I would be scared to be in that position. I don't think anybody can be certain.
Sure.
Of those things.
Yeah,
and
that's kind of.
They are, I believe, is just sort of diluted
mm-hmm.
by something or other. But I mean, that's just the way I look at it, and I don't fault anyone for looking at it differently.
Yeah, that's honestly kind of where I've been at lately. Just like, I don't know anything, and people that say that they do, they're lying. They might be convinced of something. I am convinced, currently at this point in my life, I'm convinced that there's a creator of some sort, and I'm convinced of, that there was a man named Yeshua who embodied him, who walked the earth, and I'm convinced of this and this and this. That doesn't make it any more or less true. I don't think that I know or can say that I know anything, and I don't know. My stance on religion lately has just been trying to be as humble as possible and as open-minded to the things around me. And if Christianity is completely wrong, there's nothing I can do about it. But I don't currently think it is, and I don't think that's that should be something to be afraid of. To be like whatever is whether you like it or not. So just take yourself down a couple pegs. But yeah, interesting. So Cole, do you this isn't like Cole intervention episode or anything, but curious, like, do you practice any faith or anything, or do you like read anything or anything?
If to say yes to that criteria means that I am a religious person, then like no, I don't at all. Like I've never thought that I would be able to admit that I just don't. I haven't practiced anything for a very long time.
Sure.
And if it means that when someone stops reading the Bible, stops caring what it says, stops caring whatever holy book they used to subscribe to, has to say, then that must be when they're no longer, they just can't identify with it anymore, right? So.
I'm not a psychologist. I don't know.
I can't identify with Christianity. I don't practice any of its tenets, really.
Sure.
I mean, some of our morals line up. A lot of them line up, but it's spiritual tenets. I don't practice any of them.
Yeah, and I think that's where a surprising amount of Americans, I'm sure, would fall into that category, where it's like, I'm a Christian because... Just because. Maybe I don't even go to church. It's just, it's what I am. What's that?
Like, oh, I go to church, I'm a good person. Right.
Sure. Yeah. Personally, I think that if there's a God, that I don't think that he would fault us for being humble and open-minded and exploring the universe and trying to figure out what is, and at the very least, loving each other. And, of all the things that we throw around about, like all the stupid sins and stuff, those things were mentioned a couple times in the Bible. Love each other was mentioned a whole lot more. So if the Bible means anything, then you can't go too wrong if you're loving people and humbling yourself. That's where I stand. But
I think, to touch on what I do think, and I'll wrap it up with, I'll wrap that portion of this up.
Sure.
Is that I do strongly still feel that I think an intelligent being created this. I definitely, for some reason, have a deeply rooted belief that that's probably how it started. That something with intelligence greater than ours collectively decided to make us exist.
Right.
I don't know if that means, what that means we should do about it. I just think that's probably how it began. And for no reason at all, I like to believe that the reason that we were created by that intelligent being must be that we are each a part of that God. Let's just call it a God because that's what we're familiar with. Right?
Sure.
If that God split itself, into its creation, every living thing, it would be able to experience its creation to the fullest.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of seems like that's what God wants from us, is to know us, at least that's what Christianity taught. I don't know. It's probably because of those teachings that I sort of lean this way. But I just think that we're probably, every living sentient thing is a piece of the divine. And maybe when we die, we just become part of it again, like the whole, rejoined.
Sure.
And that's just a belief that I've heard probably. I've heard bits and pieces of it probably from other podcasts or things like that. Mm-hmm. Or some forward-thinking Christian books or whatever. But
heresy books.
It's some form of universalism.
Sure.
I don't know if it's Christian universalism or if it's just spiritual universalism.
I think you'd like Marty Leeds, but let's get somebody else to weigh in. You guys can comment on where you stand on this topic, or comment on where the conversation's gone. Doesn't matter to me.
I guess, I'll comment. Cole, it sounds like, from where I'm standing at least, that you've come closer to a position of peace than you were 1 year ago. Whenever we did this, you were, whether you understood it at that point or not, you were like pretty, I don't know, angsty or combative, but now it seems like you're a lot more in peace, which is cool. What you were describing sounds a lot like Buddhism. I don't know if you've spent much time with that, but
I've drawn the connection myself. But
yeah,
I think, I don't like the tenets of Buddhism, like I still just feel, that's what's been shown to me. So
yeah, the only reason I bring it up is, even if you don't get religious, the, psychological benefits, of peace of mind and stuff like that you can draw from it can be, beneficial. But yeah, that's cool.
So where are you at these days, Nathan?
I don't know. I guess I wouldn't say like a tremendous amount different.
Hardcore Satanist.
Yeah, hardcore Satanist. I did skip out on my sex cult to be here, so I don't know, kind of drifting. But
you've backslidden on your sex cult.
Yeah, I'll need to go out and commit some licentiousness for that. No, I don't know. I guess I still kind of exist in a vaguely Abrahamic realm, but I don't know. I feel like I am constantly on this struggle between what I, as a person, feel, which is that all of it's a bunch of crap, and that like I really personally would prefer not to have any part of it on a deeply personal level. Also fighting with the fact that on another level, I feel really drawn towards certain parts of spiritualism. But I don't know. I continue to be involved. And I wouldn't say it's out of obligation. Like I do get things out of it, but like if I were to somehow separate myself from the day-to-day of actually being around the other people, I probably wouldn't go seeking it.
Yeah.
It's just that I have relationships forged and I value those. I value, being a part of their lives. But I don't know, if things were different and I was on my own and I didn't have any of that, I probably wouldn't go seeking out anything. So I don't know. I guess I'm just always kind of fighting against myself of how I feel versus, where logic and reason has brought me. And I don't know how to reconcile all the different things that I experience on that route. I don't know. But I'm not necessarily in a lot different of a place than I was a year ago.
Sure.
I guess it's more of the same and just continuing to try to be as honest with myself as I can be.
Yeah. The constant spiral of
Yeah.
beard stroking and pondering. Yes.
Exactly.
That's why we all have such beautiful beards.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And Nathan's is the most luxurious of all.
All I can say about that is Nathan's mustache is kind of doing some crazy, like, off-centered stuff right now.
It's maybe the lighting. I don't know.
It doesn't help that you have like a yellow light and you have like ginger hair and like an orange curtain behind you. So it kind of all blends together. It's just a nice, warm, cozy.
The curtain matches the drapes, is what he's saying.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
My vibe is calm, so I should get a vape in order to fit in. But
By
just
drapes,
chill.
Craig means your mustache, and I'm going to refer to your mustache as the drapes from now on.
Fair enough.
Craig, still attending the good old Open Bible Church?
Yes, I am. But again, as usual, I agree with probably 20% of it. But I just haven't moved on yet. And I haven't found a good place to go. We've tried a couple different churches out. One of them we kind of liked, but it was a little bit of a trek. And so it just didn't really work
Was it
out that
Mercy
great
Vineyard?
for us. Well, that one was, if Mercy Vineyard was closer, that would be the church we would be going to. And
Yeah.
I've told you that before, just because your pastor is the realest person I think I've ever encountered in any sort of church atmosphere. But we just can't drive the 2 hours every single week. It's just,
Sure you can.
it doesn't work out. And then, so yeah, we tried this other church out, and it was just, it's like unbelievably fake how much they're trying. Like, you get churches that try to reach to like younger people, but you can tell when it's so beyond like real,
Right.
that they're just really
Selling a
trying to.
product.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to fit in with the cool crowd and stuff, and it's just like this is just not what I'm looking for. Yes, it's fun and it's entertaining, but that's not what I'm looking for either. So
Right.
I'm not going to invest my time into that. Yeah, Open Bible isn't any more real, but it kind of be like moving, like packing up all your shit and moving to another house that you don't plan to stay at for more than like a month. And it's just like, why would I switch to that church when I don't feel anything more about it than I do the current church I'm at? Why would I invest time and like mental capacity to switch churches
Yeah.
just to be as unsatisfied as I am at my current situation? So we're still sitting in the same shitty apartment, I guess you could call it. And
What's the value that you see in continuing and going to your church?
mostly just the people. I have friends there, and so I stay there for the friends. And I mean, I get a little bit out of it, but it's so shallow and they're so legalistic. It's Open Bible. You know.
Oh, yeah.
It hasn't changed.
I would
Which
have burned the
honestly,
place down a long time ago.
surprisingly, Open Bible as a whole has laxed up on their drinking laws for ministers. They're allowing moderate drinking for their like leadership and stuff like that, which is a huge step for Open Bible. But my church personally,
how do you define moderate drinking? Like,
Yeah,
where's the line
exactly.
exactly?
exactly. But my church personally still is stuck in no, you can't do any formal leadership. Well, you can't do any on-stage leadership. We could go be children's leaders.
Right.
They've actually asked us to lead the children's church, but we can't.
Just can't be in the spotlight.
Yeah, I can't be on a worship team or something like that because I won't sign their piece of paper saying I won't drink. And it's not because I'm like, no, I have to drink. I can't sign that paper. It's I don't agree with that, so I'm not going to sign your stupid piece of paper. And I told him that. It's like, it's not that I'm hooked on alcohol and I can't give it up. It's that I don't agree with this, and so I'm not going to sign it out of principle because it's stupid. And they have worship leader who's been divorced twice. I'm sure you can say it's not his fault or whatever. I don't care at all. I don't give a shit. But it's like, these are black and white areas in the Bible that they talk about, and drinking is a very gray area. So you're drawing the line at the gray area instead of on the black and white areas. It just doesn't add up to me. And so the whole thing's dumb. And then a lot of his sermons preach against, like, he'll talk about drinking and smoking. It's just like, but you're missing the point. There's so much deeper stuff out there that you're not even like willing to discuss. Like most churches, I guarantee you 98% of churches won't like just really dig into like mental health issues and stuff like that because it's uncomfortable and they don't know about it. Yes, but you could at least address the fact. And there's so much more to like alcoholism or drug addiction and stuff like that beyond just the substance. It's like you got to dig a little deeper here, but they don't. And so I do help with the sound and video just because I want something to do. And the guy who runs the soundboard there was like, "Oh, Open Bible just started letting people start drinking." And he's a former Marine, and he's told me stories of how he's been like wasted and like jumped off his second floor balcony naked before. And it's just like, dude. And I straight up told him there, I was like, "I drink. I don't have a problem with that." He's like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "I don't have an issue." I was like, "I don't see why that's really that big of an issue." I was like, that's no different to me than eating food. You can eat food and you can overeat food. Mm-hmm. And one of them is wrong and one of them is not. And he's like, "Well, I agree with you there, but I still don't think you should be in leadership." I was like, "Okay, whatever, dude. I'm just telling you, that I do."
Yeah.
And
so what, I mean, do you feel like a conviction to continue going there, or is it just like, well, I go to church because my kids need to learn and I don't mind a couple people that are in this building and that's what we do?
I don't know, probably something similar to that. Like I said, I get a little bit out of it, and I like the concept of church and like socializing with other people, but I really wouldn't mind finding like I guess I'm like all of you. I'm not dead set in any certain like direction of Christianity or anything like that. I still subscribe to Christianity, but I'm searching. I think it's all, people got to search it out on their own, and any religion that's like, don't go look around at anything else because you'll be sinning. I just think that's a bunch of horseshit because how are you going to figure out for yourself? How are you going to even if it's 100% true, how are you going to find God for yourself if you don't go search for it on your own, in your own way, on your own terms? There's no like set format to how an individual should find God or the creator or whoever it is. It's you got to figure that out for yourself, and how you do that is just like how they figure shit out in science. You test one, and if it doesn't work, you test something else, and if it doesn't work, you keep looking until you find the answer that works. Right. And so I guess I'm kind of there. The church in general is just kind of frustrating because everybody I know that's like diehard, like religious, is like super, it's one-sided. It's like you got to be super right-winged and politically and super hardcore Christian at the same time. Right. If you're a super hardcore Christian, then you got to hate immigrants because that's just what we do.
That's what Jesus did.
It just, none of it makes sense to me. It's just like Christians
Jesus hated all the Middle Easterners, right?
Exactly. I saw a post by a super right-wing Christian, quote unquote, in my wife's family, and it was a post saying how some senator or legislator publicly prayed for forgiveness when they inducted some the first Muslim like legislator into whatever group this was. I was like, that's fucking gross.
Yeah.
I was like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
So, and she posted it in a way like, oh, this is awesome that she did this. And I was like, no, that is just wrong and
Retarded.
gross and ugly, and you're making Christians look so bad and hateful. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, we gotta ask for forgiveness because somebody different who believes something different is doing the same thing that we are doing, and this is America, and we shouldn't be allowing them to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
So-
As far as I'm concerned, is like for church and stuff like that, the only value to me that church has is community and being human with other humans and being real and open and honest and raw together. And if you don't feel like you have community and you don't feel, I'm not telling anybody here what to do, obviously, but just in general, I feel like if you don't feel like you can be 100% yourself in every single way, not that they shouldn't challenge you or anything like that, but if you can't be honest, then what's the fucking point of any of it? Like,
Right.
if you
And
have
that's
to hide
how-
things in order to, like, be in community with people, then are you even in community with them? You're not.
Right. And that's how I address it. I'm like real with anyone I come in contact with. It's like, well, I don't agree with that. Yes, we go to the same church. Yes, we do the same, I guess, religious services and stuff, but it's like, I don't agree with that. I have a hard time believing that. I have a hard time buying that. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say, oh, yeah, he's right there. No, I think he's wrong.
Yeah.
So, I'm an argumentative person. I don't know if you know that about me. So
I have noticed.
I have no issue when somebody's like, oh, they allow drinking now. I have no issue saying, so I do the same
So
thing.
they were
and I
saying
have
it
no
like it was a
problem with
bad thing?
Yeah, he was like, oh, did you? Well, because the Methodist churches had that vote about a month or so ago, whether or not they should allow homosexual ministers.
Mm-hmm.
And so the pastor was talking about that, just had mentioned it. And the guy up in the sound booth with me was like, well, Open Bible just allowed ministers to start drinking moderately. I was like,
Gasp.
okay. I was like, yeah. So I was like, good. They're laxing up a little and realizing maybe this is a little more this isn't as much as we're making it out to be.
Jesus turned the water into the really good grape juice at the end of the
Yes.
night, right?
Yes, and that's exactly.
Anyway,
So I guess I could say that I still at this point in my life think that the Bible itself, I'm not saying that there's nothing wrong with it. There's not any chance of possible human error or anything. But I think as far as like a standard and stuff, that it's got the right direction. And as far as, and this has been going on for a couple of years, as far as like whether or not dinosaurs existed or evolution couldn't possibly exist in any format, or the world being billions of years old, I don't see that the Bible contradicts that in any way.
Sure.
I think that there are sections of the Bible that are
say
meant
the
to
earth is
be.
flat.
I don't know
Just
about that.
kidding.
There are sections of the Bible that are meant to be translated literally, and there's sections that are meant as metaphor or like symbolism and stuff, because that's how poetry is. That's how all literature is. There's always something that means something else, and music's that way. And there's so many songs that people are like, well, what does this mean? And the musician's like, well, what does it mean to you? They don't give you the literal meaning. You got to figure that shit out yourself. Like, how does this work for you? And so I just feel that as far as the Bible is concerned, there's a lot of poetry in the Bible, and there's a lot of symbolism in the Bible that we'll probably never fully know exactly what it means. And like you said, for somebody to say, this is exactly what this means, you're an idiot for thinking that.
Right.
So
Yeah, for me personally, I've found a lot of peace, and this could be completely heretical, and that's fine. And I'm totally open to being convinced otherwise. But what's brought me a lot of peace is just going, I don't know, and maybe the Bible is not infallible. Maybe it's not inerrant. Maybe it's inspired by the Creator. Maybe it has a lot of very important things in it. Maybe God was talking to people and saying, hey, write this down, sometimes, and then other times they thought that he was telling them to do that. Just like I could say, I felt like God was telling me today to drink this beer. That doesn't mean God was telling me to drink this beer. Just because somebody in the Bible felt like God was telling them to wipe out a civilization doesn't necessarily mean that God was... It might have felt like it at the time, but I personally think that if there's a creator, then he's bigger than the Bible, and I've... Not that the Bible has no value, but I think that we get hung up on, oh, what does this mean? What does that mean? Like, maybe it's just like a helpful tool, and you don't have to completely 100% stress over whether or not it's factual or 100% God written by hand, and every single story is 100% true. And it might be offensive to some, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that being a possibility that we don't know, and maybe this is just something that God gave us, and we might have fucked up a couple of the details. Anybody want to weigh in?
Yeah, I and for people to claim that there's complete impossibility that there is human error in just the translation from Hebrew, an unknown language at this point, to English now. Right. Like how many translations were there between Hebrew and English? Because
I don't know, ask Jewish Nathan.
Nathan, how many steps to get from ancient Hebrew text to English?
Can I phone a friend?
Say it in your most Jewy voice possible.
You see, the thing is, there's too many big banks.
Everybody goes straight to Bernie.
No, I mean,
you could have gone Gilbert Gottfried or something. Oh
God, no, I couldn't do that. I don't think my voice is capable of reaching that modulation. Yeah, I don't. Disclaimer: don't actually know for sure, but I would say at this point, linguistics is probably, grown to such a point that, nowadays you can probably pretty quickly get there from ancient Hebrew, because I don't know, people are insane with, languages now, but between when it was written and say the 1500s, I have no idea how that process would go. I don't know.
Yeah, say like King James, the version that a lot of churches still go by, King James, which it's kind of been proven that King James there's quite a bit that's either been omitted or misinterpreted or just intentionally just kind of changed just to fit a narrative, or to fit King James' idea of what the Bible should sound like. But still, there's a lot of super traditional churches that go primarily by the King James version, and you're not religious enough if you don't say your these and thous and shit like that.
Right.
Yeah. Didn't you actually know that it makes you more religious if you say thy instead of your?
I heard that.
Of course.
But
it's true.
Yeah, that's why I feel convicted all the time.
That's
because
why
I don't
feel
say
convicted to not say it, because I don't want to be more religious. But so I suppose we can go down that a little bit further. I'm curious as to Nathan and Cole, what your thoughts are on the Bible and what you think the Bible even is in our human existence. The value that it has, where it comes from. Is it everything that you were taught as a child?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Every time we're talking and you talk, you can't cut in for some reason, probably because you're on a phone. It doesn't let you cut in to our stuff. But if we stop, we can hear you just fine.
Correct.
Nathan his head though.
Oh, I was saying I couldn't hear you because if I could hear you, then how would I?
Anyway.
This is why nothing gets done between the four of us.
Fact.
I don't put any stock in the Bible myself, really. I think for the most part, I have no certainty whatsoever that any of it is really useful. Except for maybe some historical use, of course, for comparing records of the time. And some of it holds up factually for historical record. I haven't studied it in great depth, but I've trusted to some people who have, and obviously some of its genealogies are correct, right?
I think there's definitely some historical value to some of it.
That's what I'm saying is like there's at least a few good reasons why historically it's useful for, you know, the history of mankind, for one, and our understanding of the culture.
And for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness, of course.
Exactly.
Can you name that verse, Dan?
I cannot.
I can't either, but I don't know. I just thought maybe that was your memory verse.
No.
It was at one point.
It was. I'm sure. Nathan, what's your stance on the Bible? Do you think, I mean, we could go like infallibility. Do you think that it is 100% like the spoken literal word of God, or where do you take that?
Well, I have read all of it, so I guess I'll start there. It is something that I don't know. I feel like just the way I'm this way with everything. I don't like to make a judgment on something out of ignorance, and I want to know what I'm making a judgment on. So that's, like I said, that's just how I am with everything. I read textbooks in my free time, so I'm really fun at parties.
I read the dictionary when I have a spare minute.
Yeah, so
I like to sit down with a nice glass of Pinot Grigio and read the dictionary.
Yeah, and actually, it's pretty handy if you have a hardy book to fight off all the ladies that are trying to come after you. So,
Cole? Go ahead. Yeah. Let Cole talk.
No, you guys can't hear what I'm saying when someone else is talking at all.
That's correct.
That's a true fact.
Yes. That's why I'm giving you the floor right now. Did you have something to say?
I was just testing it. Is it going to be it'll be on the recording though. You guys talking and me talking at the same time?
No, it shouldn't.
No,
be.
you cut out for us too.
Unless you
cut out for us too.
Yeah, it'll cut out. But if you have something to say, you can raise your hand and I can call on you. We're not trying to talk over you, but Skype keeps it cuts you out whenever we're talking. But
I'm not gonna lie, it's probably for the best because there's a lot of times when I try to interject for stupid jokes, and I've stopped now because I realize you're not gonna hear it anyway.
Yeah, there's like a slight delay on the connection, and so I'm always mumbling stupid shit, and I wonder what it sounds like on the other end.
Cole, I also noticed when you were in the garage and Chrissy came in, you were talking to her, and we couldn't hear you, so that actually worked out really well.
I muted it for that.
Oh,
so.
Nice.
I also muted it when I left the garage. Did that work?
I saw that, yes.
I forgot to mute it when I yelled at my kid, so you probably heard that on the
we heard.
We heard too.
I hit the mute button, but I was already muted. I hit the mute button, but I was apparently already muted, so
anyway.
Nathan. So, so like I was saying, I have read through all of it, and though I can't say that me as a person likes all of it, I have yet to find anything that I can point to and say that's contradictory to itself or that actually doesn't work. There's definitely a lot of areas where I have questions, but when I actually stick to it and seek an answer, I can't say that there's any part of it that I have. You know, there's still questions that I have that I'm still working my way through, but none of them substantiate to me saying that's proof that it's all a bunch of baloney. Mm-hmm. You know, that doesn't necessarily. I hate appeals to ignorance, basically saying, well, because of that, therefore it has to be true. I don't think that's a decent argument.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I have yet to find something that I cannot work my way through. Or anything that doesn't add up when you bring in other factors to try to work your way through it. I don't know. As far as, is it everything I was taught when I was a kid? I was taught a bunch of mythology as a kid, so I can't really say that it does.
Sure.
So I don't know. But that's not a bad thing. As far as its place, if you want to read it and if you want to gain something from it, I feel like you definitely can. I would also say that's the case with a lot of other religious books, with a lot of philosophical texts, with a lot of I mean, there's so many places you can get value if you're seeking it and if you're actually, giving it a real opportunity. But if you think it's a bunch of crap, then why bother unless you're actually curious? I wouldn't waste my time with something that I didn't really want to give a chance.
Sure. Interesting. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm surmising from that is you think that it's fine if it is completely infallible Word of God, but you also think that it's fine if it isn't.
I'm saying I'm not going to go after somebody because they say it is or isn't.
Sure.
I don't feel like that's the best use of my time to argue about something like that when I'm probably not going to.
Right. I'm not asking if you care if other people, like, I personally don't care if somebody else, like, far be it for me to, I'm not smart enough even, like, or knowledgeable enough in the scripture to say it's not 100% infallible, so I'm not going to attack somebody either, but I'm curious as to your standpoint. Do you feel that it is fallible or infallible, or
there's layers to that question. I am nowhere near fluent in Hebrew, so a little bit more so in Greek, but not anywhere near a point that I would say I'm fluent.
Sure.
I just understand more of it than Hebrew. That also has to do with the fact that it's a lot closer to English than Hebrew is. So I can't read the original language. I can't read that text in its entirety. So I'm reading a translation of something. So that is one layer on its own of removal. So is it possible that there were errors in translation? Yeah, for sure. And do I read different passages and compare it to the original language, sometimes find it wanting? Yeah, for sure. I think the translations in some points are really bad, and that's just because different languages have different ways of expressing things. So I definitely believe that people reading an English translation of the Bible are going to get things wrong. So on that regard, I think sometimes it's unhealthy for people to say like, oh yeah, this is infallible. It's definitely like fully and entirely true.
Sure. And
let their interpretation be misguided. I think you need to come at it with humility, knowing that you don't know everything and you can't. Right. It's good to, in my opinion, if you're going to treat it like your religious text, it's, good to read the whole thing. If you expect to, profess it, know about it. If you do believe in God, that he gave you this thing as a tool, to not know all of it, at least not to put your eyes on every single page, is kind of a waste of resources when you have it available to you in so many different translations in English.
Sure.
Choose one or listen to it. I don't care how, but if you're not trying to know the thing that you're arguing about all the time, then you're kind of sucky at what you're doing. So for one, read it. For two, there are some things that are repeated clearly enough and often enough that you can devise a pretty clear teaching from it. On those issues, you should probably, if you profess to follow that religion, you should probably agree that those are clear, believe that. I personally use it as I believe that it is factually correct. I haven't found anything to prove otherwise. So
sure.
That's not to say that, again, that the version that I have is entirely accurate. You need to bring in other sources. You need to study things in such a way that you're not just being a fool. So I don't know.
All right. So I don't know.
Do you think you say the Bible is accurate and correct? Is that what you
I
said?
believe so, yes.
Okay. Because when you say your opinion on like religion, it sounded like you said you didn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah. So no, that's exactly true. Me as a person, like if I'm being honest with how I feel, like, no, I don't get much out of church. Like, I don't really look forward to going all the time. Like, I would probably, if I was removed from my situation, I probably wouldn't go seeking it. But at the same time, I'm very philosophical, very logical, very drawn towards things like that. So, like, I'm kind of caught between these two things of, like, not really loving religious people all the time, not really seeking out things like that necessarily, but at the same time, I do get a lot out of studying it. I don't know. I'm kind of in between these two places of, I'm kind of by consequence of being logical and liking philosophy in studying that, I have become slightly spiritual, but in my base nature, I'm not necessarily a religious person. So I don't know. I'm kind of in this weird spot of not really wanting anything to do with it, but also not being able to deny it entirely.
But you do think that there's a biblical translation that has the correct way to be and live and truths and rules that you should, you know what I mean? Like, you think that there's a Bible that God wrote? Or?
I feel like there's enough information about, like, the most important things are clear enough that you can gain that knowledge by reading it, no matter how smart you are, or, you know, what translation you're reading, how good or bad the translation is. The basic things, the truly important things are clear enough and they're repeated often enough that you can kind of get the message. Some of the finer details.
There would be very few of those, right? Are those something you could list? Are they short to you? Or is it?
I mean, I can list a few things. Like, it's not necessarily an exhaustive list, but I mean, the Bible's pretty clear about whether it feels like there's a God or not. It's pretty clear about, you know, should you be a upright, moral person or a wicked person? It's pretty clear about how you should treat other people. It's pretty clear about
in what ways then? But you know what I mean?
In what ways what?
To treat other people.
With respect, with dignity, out of humility, with love. It's pretty clear about love. It's pretty clear about being charitable to people, not hurting your family in order to help other people. But I don't know. I mean, just being generally kind to other people.
What most people consider decent. A decent person.
Yeah.
I feel 90% of Christians like lack mostly more than most people. Like you get people because
that could just be because you're going to an open Bible church.
No, I'm talking lots and lots of people.
I know.
I get so many people. Like I am working in a marketing class for some. We're working on a marketing project for some outreach program or this outreach group. And one of the things they do is they house refugees. They like relocate them and stuff. And so I sent out a survey.
Do they have to live like a refugee?
Questions. Yes.
No.
So I sent out a survey asking different questions about like how much people donate to charity and stuff like that. And one of the things I asked is, would you support a charity that relocates refugees? And I got a whole bunch of I got a lot of yeses. Over half were yes. Probably 30% were no. But then more than yeses were maybes, which were probably people that were like, I don't want to be an asshole and say no, but they weren't willing to say yes. And I've heard several people say, well, I'd rather give my money I'd rather help out the needy here in the United States before I helped out other refugees. And my question to that is, are you doing it? Yeah, right. Exactly. It's like 99% of them probably aren't doing that as well. Yes, they think that it would be more beneficial to help out like homeless veterans and stuff like that. It's like, but you're not doing that though. You're not doing any of that. And so for somebody to say, yeah, I'm a Christian but I don't support helping people from other countries, it's like, well, you're completely going against biblical teaching, and you're not living a loving life. Yeah, I think there should be like rules and stuff, like kind of regulations to not just letting anybody and anyone just flow in and do whatever the hell they like and not live by the laws of the land and stuff. I think there should be standards to that. But for you to just say, nope, not going to help support somebody who's fleeing from a country where if they stay, they will literally be murdered. I don't support that because there are homeless people here in the United States. You're not a freaking Christian, in my opinion. You're not following biblical standards, or you're not following how Jesus would respond to that.
You're a Republican Christian.
Yeah, which in terms is
no
just
offense, Republicans,
you're a Republican.
Just stereotypes here.
Right. And that just translates to you're just a Republican. Yes, you claim you're a Christian because you're a Republican, but no, you're just a Republican because you don't follow the teachings. And Cole, you asking, the different kind of what I take as what's kind of the difference between you believing like biblical teachings, but you're not religious. I think there's a huge difference because most religious people I know don't follow biblical teachings in any way. And that's why I personally hate religion and religious people, because they don't follow what they say, or what the thing is they're putting their hand down and saying they're swearing by.
Right.
You don't follow that. You don't follow those teachings. And I think if more people like even just pushed out the rest of the Bible aside and just followed the first four books of the New Testament, just followed how Jesus was, we'd have so many better, less shitty people in the world. If you said you're a Christian because you follow Christ, well, just read these first 4 chapters of the New Testament and live like this guy. You'd be a better person, hands down.
Right.
But they don't. They take all this stuff from like the Old Testament and all this laws and legalist stuff, and then they make their rules determined based on those, and they forget this main point right in the center, which is supposed to be the center of Christianity.
Yeah, I think, Craig, you're exactly right. They are using the thing they claim to believe in as an excuse or for reasons to get around actually doing the things that their book says they should be doing.
Right.
And you're right. If they read those 4 books and kept to that, the person they claim as their savior actually specifically called out people who were using their traditions to get around taking care of their parents because they had already obligated their money as a gift to the temple. It's pretty much exactly what people do nowadays. Say, "Oh, I'd love to help, but this other reason, I'm going to justify myself so I don't actually have to be a good person."
A lot of people who respond to the survey, and I can't see who responds, but I can see all the responses. It's like, how much do you donate to charity annually? And several people said, I donate 10% to my church. Like, that's not donating to charity.
That's your pastor's salary. That's not charity.
Yeah, that's your church obligation of paying tithe, and you think that they are distributing that to charity themselves, when in reality, like 95% of church income goes to the building or the overhead or the salaries and stuff like that. So no, you like you said, Dan, they're paying the pastor's salary for in calling that charity.
Right. And even my pastor knows that my 10% tithe, I pay to charity. I don't even give to my church. I give my time to my church, and I care about my church, and I love the people and the community and everything. I love what they're doing, and I support it. And when they have some things that come up here and there, I'll give a little bit to, like, they're working on buying their building right now. I've given to that a couple times. But in general, my heart is, if I feel compelled to give money, a certain percentage to anything, it's not going to be probably anything in America. It's going to be something, a person in a place that is going through something that our brains can't even process what they're going through. Like, and there's really easy options to do that. So, I don't know that this has anything to do with what we're talking about, but for me personally, I don't care about the whole tithe to your church thing. And I could be wrong. I don't know, based on scripture or whatever. I don't really care. And my church is okay with that. So be it.
I think, Dan, you're touching on something, which is that it's probably easier now than ever to give your money to anybody in the world, anywhere, for any reason.
Yeah.
So, saying that you'd rather take care of people here at home, it's exactly what Craig's saying. Are you doing that? And literally all you have to do is that thing that you're staring at right now to look at Facebook, switch over to another tab and
click a button.
Donate. It's really not going to take much from you. And if you're unwilling to do that, how do you claim to love people?
Right.
Hey guys, this is Dan's wife, Kayla. I just wanted to interrupt this podcast to let you know that he puts a lot of work into it for currently no monetary profit. And he has a family to feed. To do so, he runs his own media business called Goulash Media. Dan has a crazy creative brain that makes him uniquely able to take your project, whatever it may be, and make it the full package. So whether you're in need of graphic design, logos, branding, commercials, wedding videos, podcast jingles, music production, music videos, merchandise, websites, pictures, or what have you, contact Dan and he'll seriously make you look and sound awesome. For more information, just go to goulashmedia.net. That's goulash, Goulash, media.net, where Dan caters to the little guy with the big vision.
Yeah, going down some heavy roads here. We didn't actually
started out the section by saying, "What do you think about the Bible and everything else?" Like, okay,
no, I
were
enjoy it. I enjoy it very much. Let's backpedal just a little bit because we got Cole's thoughts on conspiracy stuff, but Craig and Nathan, we didn't really get into that too much with either of you. Where do you guys land on that? Do you give any credence to the fringe topics and the things that are truth, as I would call it? Just kidding. The crazy stuff. Do you care about it? Do you believe any of it? Where do you stand?
I probably stand in the same spot as far as I think.
Which, Craig, your process has been documented pretty well since we did the news,
right.
like every single week. So your stance won't be too much of a surprise. But go ahead.
I think that a lot of what we are told is more than likely bullshit to cover up for other things, or a lot of the stuff the news is saying is probably a bunch of noise to get us to not look at what's really going on. And that worries me more than what's going on in the news is what we're not being told, what's really going on behind closed doors. And I think you're naive if you think that the government has your best interest and they're doing everything that they say they're doing, first of all, and everything is happening exactly how they say. I also think you're naive to believe a conspiracy where Donald Trump is the savior of the world. Right. I mean, there's so much, and in the last 2 years, conspiracies have become more mainstream with like the QAnon stuff, but a lot of it has shifted towards the conspiracy that Donald Trump is going to save the universe, and it's just hard to even get into go down those rabbit trails anymore because they always come back to that same spot at this point, and it's just like, but I want some real stuff, like something that's that might be like the JFK stuff or something like that, where it's something that I can actually grab onto and believe. But when it always comes back to, oh, Donald Trump is saving the world from all the evil swamp monsters and stuff like that. It's like, but really, what if maybe he's doing
his best job, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be the savior of humanity.
Yeah.
He's also, I also don't believe that he's Hitler incarnate. But
no.
I think that there's something in between that we're all missing, and everybody goes to the extreme polar sides. And we lost
I still am really intrigued by anything conspiracy related. And like I said to Cole, like I'll read any of it, even if in the back of my head I'm like, yeah, that's probably horseshit. Mm-hmm. But I like to learn stuff and learn new angles on stuff and just kind of think outside the box a little bit. But I don't really dive down the rabbit holes anymore like I used to. I mean, I'd like to, but I don't have the time to do it as much. And
also, YouTube doesn't allow you like they used to.
I know, it's kind of disappointing. They don't have the pop it up in your face like, oh, this is happening right now, and you should look in and like suck you into it, because
it used to be like, oh, if you're watching 9/11 videos, you might like this other 9/11 video or this Sandy Hook video or this or this or this. And now it's like, if you're watching this 9/11 video, here's the Wikipedia thing as to why everything in this video is wrong, and also now go watch the Tonight Show or something. Like it's like there's no
Neil
actual
deGrasse Tyson
recommendations like based on your interests. It's all kind of diversion, it seems like, on YouTube.
Yeah, and so I haven't had time. Like a lot of my information came from podcasts before, and I haven't been listening to podcasts lately, so I haven't dug a ton into it. But I do kind of stand in the same spot where I think a lot of the narratives are wrong, and they're telling us the wrong thing. And a lot of the ones that I've mentioned before that I think aren't true or are true, I still stand by those. Like, I still think 9/11 is still super, super shady, and there's a lot there that we're missing. And I think some of that is kind of starting to come out because they're starting to implicate some Saudis and stuff like that in 9/11 more recently than the last time we talked. And so I think...
Osama?
What's that?
Other than Osama bin Laden?
Well, yeah, but I think they're making more Saudi connections with 9/11 than, and people are starting to realize that Afghanistan really didn't have too much to do with 9/11.
Right.
But I think it's going to take a while for any real truth to come out, and it's kind of like JFK. Now, probably 60% of people don't think the official JFK narrative is true. Probably more than that now. But back in the 60s, there was probably more like how 9/11 is now, where the majority of the people think, yeah, this one guy shot and killed JFK and end of story. But now, 50, 60 years later, people are starting to see different evidence and stuff like that that's been released over the decades, and it's like, well, yeah, that's really fishy, and that probably didn't happen that way. But it's been so long that it's just like, well, what the hell are we going to do about it? And I think that's probably how 9/11 is going to be. Probably in 2040 or something like that, some big bombshell is going to come out. And it's like, yeah, but that thing happened.
Like, it was a thing. Like, yeah,
that was 60 years ago.
A bunch of old guys still talk about that, but nobody cares anymore because we're looking at the iPhone 500. Who cares about this? And hoverboards are real now.
Yeah, so I think there's validity to questioning it and looking into it because that's what keeps people on their toes. And I think 4 years ago or 2 years ago when you started this thing, internet was kind of power and the information was out there, and it was just like, well, there's so much information to grab onto, and now 2 years later it's like, well, there's really not. It's turning backwards where there's not as much information available to look on your own except for what people are telling you, hey, look at this instead.
Right. And
I think that's a bunch of crap too, and that's its own conspiracy, I guess. But I'm definitely still conspiracy minded, and I will I'll argue with anybody about anything. I will sit there and argue with a diehard moon lover or whatever that the moon landing was fake, even if I have my doubts one way or another. I'll still like, you, dude, look at this. Did you look at this? Did you look at this? And I'm not telling you, hey, that was fake, but
just
you can't tell me for sure. Yeah, just
like, you don't know anything about it. Just let's talk about it. It's fine. It's fine.
Right. And I'd rather have those debates with people, even if I'm on the opposite side that I agree with. Yeah. I'd still rather have those debates just to get people to think about it.
Yeah, just to make people figure out why they think the way they do. Like, why you are vehemently like arguing a point. Why? Like, why do you feel that way? What is it in your life that brought you to that conclusion? Do you actually have a foundation for why you're so angry about and passionate about that thing? Or are you just that way? Like, yeah, I've talked about that way too much lately, but none of you know because you don't listen to the podcast. Nathan, how do you feel about conspiracies lately?
Lately, I don't know. It's a whole lot different. The concept of conspiracies doesn't trouble me or scare me or, sexually excite me or anything. I guess the thing is, well, for one, each president is either the Antichrist or the Messiah, depending on whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. So on that ground, there's always going to be people who are, coming up with a bunch of shit just because it supports their political motivations. So I try not to give a lot of credence. Well, I don't, to a lot of them that come and go because they're motivated by, basically incorrect motivations. There's a lot of things that, like the classics, like Area 51, the moon landing, 9/11, JFK, all that stuff. That, I think they're always going to be around. They have staying power for some reason, for one or another. And I think a lot of that comes just down to the fact that we don't have a really clear picture one way or another of what really happened. So it's leave a lot of room for people to make assumptions, and they're exciting, to think like, oh, well, what if we didn't land on the moon? Or, what if JFK really was assassinated by the government? Or, what if, all these, it's kind of exciting, to think about the what ifs, that part of it.
It makes the layperson in their home office or even laying in bed into Nicolas Cage National Treasure. Like, we can put the pieces together, and it's all beautiful. I'm discovering something.
I think if even the government just came out and said, we're not sure, I think that would do a lot to put some of this to bed. Right. Because when they come out and they're like, this is exactly what happened, everyone's like, that doesn't seem right.
Well, yeah, so the lack of transparency in government stuff is the biggest issue for the conspiracy stuff. If the government was more honest and more transparent on things, I feel like there would be less of this stuff, because there's just so much shadiness going on, and people are just like jumping to conclusions. And I know a lot of people jump to insane conclusions, but they're not necessarily insane to do so, because we're not allowed to know a lot of things.
Yeah, I think the concern probably.
Cole has a point.
Oh yeah, go Cole.
Let's let him.
I submit that I don't love it, but I don't think any government that hopes to operate and give a people group like as large as ourselves in America the rights that we have. There's no way they could expect, or we could expect them to be 100% transparent, open, and honest, and still have and afford all the freedoms that we have. Honestly, there's so much we have daily that we don't even understand what we support.
What would it hurt if they were more transparent with everything?
If they just started doing it now, I don't know. Obviously there would be uproar and there would be mass hysteria.
Assuming that all the conspiracies are true.
Anything that is incriminating about the government itself that we as the people happen to deem, if people happen to deem it heinous enough, or better yet, there's lots of things that we have, freedoms that we have, that we probably wouldn't agree with the method that they were gotten. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So there's tons of times where if the government were open and honest and all that, they wouldn't accomplish anything. We wouldn't have the things that we wouldn't not give up today, but we probably maybe wouldn't have agreed to, the method that they were obtained by. Portable clothing.
Does that justify it, though?
No, I'm not saying that it justifies it. I'm just saying we enjoy those freedoms, and we enjoy a lot of luxury here in this country, and I don't think that it's an accident that our government has to be secretive about some things in order for us to have that.
Yeah, I think the theory is sometimes it's better not to see the sausage being made. It doesn't taste as good.
Right.
I
know that things. If we just saw how the sausage was made suddenly, it would be a shit show.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of things. You're exactly right. So conspiracy theories are inflated by the fact that the government is inherently dishonest to its people in many ways. And there are things I think that the government does that they do because they think they're in a position to make a call on whether or not whether the means are justified, through the end.
Yeah.
And if any of you have ever, Craig, I don't know if maybe you would be more into this because you served in some form of military, but
he's got a Marine flag right there on his wall.
Yeah, interesting. The unknown, the now it's multiple unknowns buried to represent anyone who fought or died in any of the wars. At first it was one, but now we said, okay, World War I, World War II, we want an unknown soldier for them. We want one for Korea. Vietnam, I mean, the number of unidentified bodies had decreased to a point where there were 4 and then 3 and then 2 and then there was only this one, and they likely did know who it was. In fact, the people who were analyzing the remains said, we will know once this technology becomes available, DNA, looking forward to what DNA could be. We could very possibly put a positive ID on this thing that we already know is likely this person. But the government said, no, it's more important to have a symbol. This isn't a person anymore. We're not going to return them to their family. I mean, I think most people would look at that and say that's pretty shitty. But the government said it's justified because we need to have this, body in a tomb to represent
like a symbol for
So I think there's
whatever.
a lot of things like that, more serious on in some cases than that the government does, because it's what's best for us, and we can't know because what possibly would go wrong. So I think a lot of that plays into it. But yeah, I back to what I was saying, I do find some of the what ifs to be kind of exciting. Like I like thinking about, like, hey, what if, this thing in history never happened, or what if it happened differently or in a different time? Like, those things are kind of fun. So in that regard, conspiracies can be entertaining to me on a very cursory level because it explores that. It's like why I enjoy watching The X-Files, because it's kind of exciting. It's different. But I will be honest, even if I did like conspiracies, I cannot stand conspiratists. They do themselves a lot of conspiracists. They do themselves a lot.
That's why he can't stand them, because they constantly correct your grammar.
Exactly.
Nathan, is this you coming out of the closet saying that you actually, in fact, hate me?
Yes. No, I feel like I've been pretty open about that throughout the tenure of our friendship. But
all right. Well, now I can say how I really feel about your Jewiness.
Whatever. You've never held back. I don't know. They do things like, from, I think, what they consider to be a well-meaning perspective. They say things like, look into it. Well, basically what you're saying is you're a fucking retard who can't study on their own. So I need to force feed you the information so that you can become woke.
You are painting the same broad brush that we've painted Christians in,
It also implies that if you would only look into it, you'd think like me. I'm
exactly
smarter. My
Well,
of course,
I
painting with a broad brush. I'm obviously creating a caricature. I'm simply saying,
sure,
this is a fact that people are like this in that camp.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you. I'm not saying all people.
Well, all of the YouTube
same
commenters, all of the anonymous people are like that 100%, and I hate every single one of them.
I think the same can be said about people who agree with die hard with, like, science and stuff like that. It's like, well, what do you mean? Like, how do you know that? Well, science, bro. It's science. It's just science.
Look into it,
exactly.
Man. Scientists say.
And my thing is,
still a hell of a lot better of a fucking answer than I just believe it. Like, if there is tested, something to observe and testable. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm going to go with the way that science.
But
yes, but define what the science
but what's tested?
Is. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I totally agree. I'm somebody that subscribes wholeheartedly to things that are measurable, verifiable, scientific, logical. But when you present something, instead of just saying, I believe this because science, like, what science are you talking about? Like, can you actually bring forward an actual piece of evidence, or are you just saying that because other people believe it? And in that case, you're really no better than anybody else who's arguing.
Some people don't think to defend that position, and I think in many ways I'm one of them, because I seriously don't think I need to defend a position that says vaccines are good for you, because that's scientifically true.
But there is a lot of evidence that you're calling to support you. You're not just saying, because someone says that's the case. You yourself may have benefited from a certain amount of evidence that you're bringing to the table. You're not just saying because the scientists say so.
Right.
which is kind of, you know, all of this aside, the reason that I would have a hard time throwing myself in with any conspiracists, even if I did believe that way, is that they tend not to go about. They claim to be logical and open-minded, yet they will not, you know, entertain a conversation with somebody bringing forward, you know, sources or being logical, walking through it. You're different, obviously, because that's kind of what you're, you know, making your living doing, is talking through things, exploring. You're not necessarily
making a living. I'm just doing it.
Well, sure, but that's what you spend your time doing, and you're not necessarily a conspiracist. It's just that's what tends to be popular. But the majority of people are just doing it to be contrarian, in my opinion, and they're like, oh, you know, the Earth is flat and the moon landing was faked, and, you know, just look into it, bro, and you'll agree.
It is, and
you
it
know,
was, but that's another
at
topic.
the same
another
time,
day.
And look into it, bro.
But if I bring up mathematical proofs and scientific evidence, and you say,
Right.
well, you know, I'm not an expert. Okay, well then fucking become one, because you're saying something as though you are.
But I think
for
the same
both sides, though.
thing can be on both sides, though, because
Agreed.
like you can come out, you can give fact after fact after fact why you don't think the moon landing's real. You could be like, well, what about this? What about this? And what about this? And then somebody else will come at you and be like, dude, it was real. I saw it on TV, bro. And it's the same thing on both sides. So,
Exactly.
I mean, you can, because I know people that claim that they have mathematical proof that the world is flat. Yet people on the other side will be like, you're a fucking idiot, dude. It's the same thing on both sides. Both sides will say, I have mathematical proof, or I have this proof or this evidence. And both sides, there are still the people that are like, no, fuck that. That's stupid.
Right.
Because that's just the ground that they've taken. They've taken their stance and they're going to stay there. And that's what I said about conspiracies. I'll argue either side because I like to argue, and I like people to actually think about what they're talking about, not just make a claim and say, no, that's wrong because somebody said it was wrong. Well, based on what, though? Like, tell me what that's based on, please.
I think the thing that joins most of us here, and probably most of the people that, you know, care to listen to us, you know, drone on about, you know, boring shit, is that we're at least somewhat interested in pursuing something that could be called true, even if we disagree, if we're being honest with each other, if we're actually like trying to study the thing that we're talking about, trying to grow out of it. Like, that's the thing that frustrates me about, like you said, people on both sides of the issue, is they just want to argue. They don't want to actually, you know, discover together. They don't want to go on that journey together. They just want to fight. It's you versus us, you know, and it's red versus blue. We need to argue because we're also pissed off that we can't make a living and we haven't had sex in 40 years. Like, just maybe, you know, pursue something together and forget about who's on what side, and maybe you'll end up in a similar location. Maybe not, but at least you respected one another enough to have that conversation.
Yep, and that's why all three categories, I think, play into each other, because it takes a lot of humility and open-mindedness to actually be in a search for the right answer. And you can't be in camps, you can't be on teams. I have things that I'm convinced are the way things are, and I'm open to being wrong, and I might fight against being proven wrong just because I feel like I have evidence to prove that I'm right. But at the end of the day, if you show me the sixth finger on my left hand, I have to change the way I've been thinking and accept the fact that I have six fingers on my left hand, because you know, some things just are, and you have to accept the new evidence. That goes for all camps on all things, but I feel like we can transition pretty easily into politics at that point. I am currently still libertarian. And actually, on all these things, I probably, since the beginning, have, in my digging and my exploration, I feel like I've kind of come to more conclusive stances on some things, in politics and religion and conspiracies, things that I think are and things that I think aren't. And I think that libertarianism is just kind of a logical no-brainer personally. So I don't need to say too much on that. And I think that politics in general is a lot of it is kind of a wash and a waste of conversation because it very very often gets nothing done. But I'm also a patriot, and I love our country, and I think that we are doing the best of all the terrible things that are going on in the world. I would rather live here than anywhere else, so I'm not like shitting on our country or anything, but I do think that things could be better and with more libertarian, more freedom, more liberty-based ideas. But where are you guys at on politics?
Cole is in his garage. I'm assuming you made him
on politics.
Unlike you, Dan, I would say I've probably gone the opposite direction. I've pulled back more. I've probably found myself growing farther from any political camp.
Sure. I hold
like
these things very loosely too. Like I've kind of solidified what I think is true, but it doesn't. It's not specific to any camp necessarily. Like if a party does something and changes their mind or goes a different way, then that doesn't change my mind necessarily. So,
I would say, except for really extreme people, which I would say actually probably categorizes a very small percentage of the population. Anybody who says that either predominant political party represents accurately the people of this nation are self-deceived.
Sure.
There's an increasingly growing moderate population that cannot call themselves Democrat or Republican,
right.
conservative or liberal. That it's so far from anything that accurately represents the individuals it's supposed to be representing. And now throw that all into one area. Maybe a year ago, I would have said that I more closely associated with libertarianism. I don't even say that anymore. Generally speaking, I think there's a lot of things that should be left up to each individual or community to decide for themselves. And in that regard, I would be slightly libertarianist. But libertarian? God, why is it so hard? But I don't know. At the same time, people do need a certain amount of governance. I don't think anarchy is a good option. I'm not saying that's what libertarianism, promotes. But I don't know. I really don't agree with a lot of that anymore either. I don't really see anything out there that, in its current state, really truly represents what I currently feel politically.
On the idea of like limited, like not hardcore anarchy, but limited government and more individual freedom. What do you like disagree with as far as libertarianism goes?
Now there's a lot of different shades of libertarianism, so
yes,
it's hard to really say because there's not really a clear example of it out there in play. Right. So I can't say, well, I disagree with libertarianism because of this, because, well, it isn't really being demonstrated. So if I were to say I was against something in particular, it would be a theory, and then, it could very easily be countered by saying, oh, well, there's, also different shades of this thing.
Sure.
Broadly, I feel like the extreme hands-off policy that it takes with a lot of things is not necessarily realistic. It's all well and good to say, people should be able to do whatever drug they want, but at the same time, as much as I value freedom, I also recognize the value in having a certain amount of structure and order. And there are certain things, not necessarily just saying that one element, but there are certain things in the world around us that they do benefit from having somebody who's a little bit more traditional minded and saying we need some structure, even though I might personally feel like, liberty is a beneficial thing. I also like the fact that, certain people get arrested when they're driving like an asshole. So I don't know. In theory, most political, philosophies are great. But when it comes to actually living it out in the world, when you're dealing with people, they all tend to fall short of their ideal. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Gotcha. Gold, where do you stand?
Okay, well,
Politics, go.
how do you follow that?
Sorry.
No, I pretty much agree with you, man. Like, I can't identify with any faction of our current system. I don't think that either candidate, either party could ever accurately represent our country, as you said, or the people of the country. Usually, it's just
you.
Yeah.
Like that's
one
the biggest
side
concern.
out the other, and we deal with one's agenda for 4 to 8 years, and then the next comes, and we deal with their agenda for 4 to 8 years, and it just is what it is. Overall, I cool with the direction that our state of society and government has been going. I mean, I don't want more government. I don't want a lot less. I mean, I don't think I want much more. I think government subsidized healthcare would be pretty nice, but
different day, different conversation.
Right. In some ways, I want just a little bit more from the government. Obviously, I think they could do better on some things. I think, of course, but definitely agree with a lot of the libertarian ideas and ideals that people should be able to more or less govern themselves, but we know they're not going to be able to. So I don't know if I identify with any system that would be better. I just, I certainly don't support people like Trump. They're not because he's a Republican. He's not even a Republican. He just jumped on board with a ship so he could get on the bill and get the backing. I can't.
Not to open that can of worms, but what do you disagree with him on? Out of curiosity, in 10 words or less. Just kidding.
I think it's foreign policy awful. Of course, the way he treats immigration, the way he treats refugees, the way he treats how we handle, the wall with Mexico. That whole thing's a joke. He's just a blemish on our entire country. I think he's a bad person. It doesn't mean that I think having sex with porn stars is bad. I just think, or you know what I mean? I don't care about that. I think his character is flawed. I think it's deeply flawed. I just don't like the guy.
Sure. Yeah, he's not a guy that I would want to hang out with, but all in all, I don't disagree with too much of what he's done, to be completely honest. But I don't want to get too deeply into that.
I think that he's done anything awful. I just think the things he says and the things he says in an interview that he wants and the way he wants them is usually stupid, and I disagree with it. But he really hasn't accomplished any of that shit.
Sure.
And yeah, I haven't seen anything happen that I'm in uproar about, except for the fact that he is an incredible embarrassment.
Just in his character and his personality.
Yeah, I mean, I think him jumping on the conservative bandwagon is stupid. I don't like those hyper-conservative values. Sure. I think trying to push them on any conservative value that he has, like, what are some? Does he claim to be pro-life? Does he claim to be against abortion and outlawing it? Does he claim to be... What are his, like, religious leanings? Like, Dan, can you...
I really don't care about his religious leanings in any aspect whatsoever. He claims to be pro-life, yes. He has been pushing more in that direction, but he hasn't done a whole lot for it. And that's, for me, and I've said this many times in the past, like, as far as, like, Republicans voting specifically for one person, whoever is the pro-life candidate, that's who you're going to vote for. Guess what? George W. Bush was pro-life. And here we are with nothing changed on abortion. I'm 100% against abortion, but voting for the guy who's pro-life doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to change anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, single issue voting is just a joke. So we've said that. We said that before.
Well, and like we've seen, he started his term with control over everything, and he still couldn't get shit done. So honestly, why does the president really matter that much. You know,
It doesn't. Yeah, I think that local voting is much more important. That people look into their local politicians than, Trump might be able to wave a magic wand and make weed legal tomorrow, and he could. But is he going to? Probably not. But your state could. So, vote for that if that's what you believe in. Like, vote for people that actually have an impact on your life. So.
The beauty of that is, if you don't want to live in a state where weed is legal, you can move. If it's that big of a deal to you.
The one single power I think the president has that if you are going to vote for a president, the one single power they have is the ability to appoint justices who actually make the rules and stuff. Because the president can make whatever statement that he wants, or what's the word I'm looking for, where he makes the little short-term laws and stuff. But the Supreme Court has the right to turn around and say, hey, that's not constitutional, like they did with Trump several times. And so really order. The single executive order, there you go. I mean, freaking Obama put in like several executive orders before he left office, and then it turned around and was reversed as soon as Trump took office. And Trump made executive orders on like the immigration ban, and the Supreme Court said, no, you're not going to do that. And so, yes, they can say whatever they want and claim whatever they want, but really the one true power they have is the ability to instate Supreme Court justices. So if you are going to vote for the person that you think is going to appoint a decent justice, not the person that is saying all the big words that you think you want to hear.
Or the person that you think will hit the big button of war fewer times than the other, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, and that's the other thing.
That's something that they can do pretty easily.
Well, they can't declare war is the thing, though, but they can have whatever 20-year-long battles and stuff like that. But they can't. They can't declare war,
but they can go to war and just not call it war, call it something else under a different label, and it's totally fine.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The thing is, like, kind of like you're saying, vote according to this or that. You know, if we're all voting according to our conscience, that's a good start. But the frustrating thing is that we've all said that neither Democrats nor Republicans really represent most of the people yet. Yeah, right. If you go out and ask anybody who they're going to vote for, they're going to most likely be voting against somebody or against a party, not for somebody. And if neither party really represents you, why are you doing that? You're throwing away your vote if you don't. Okay, but you're also throwing away your vote when you do, because you don't really care. You just want to make sure that the blue people don't get in or the red people don't get in.
Mm-hmm. It's dumb.
It's such an ineffective system. So I don't know really why I would get too heated about it, or why I would have a debate with somebody about, whether or not Trump is going to save us all, or whether I think he's an idiot, because honestly, it's not that important. It's just the most popular issue right now to talk about. It always is going to be the hottest topic, even though it has the least impact on most of us.
Yeah, the whole vote against the person, I don't know, vote against who you don't want. It's just stupid. It's like assuming that your vote matters in any way whatsoever, which it matters almost not at all, if at all. The very least you could do is put in a vote for, your moral values, because, like, your vote's going to do nothing either way. So, what if you think that it's going to be throwing it away in any way whatsoever? It's going to be throwing it away to vote against somebody and voting in somebody else who's similarly corrupt, but in just a different packaging.
Mm-hmm. Wake up, sheeple.
Cole, shrug and shake your head. You got something to say?
Oh,
I can't hear you. You're still muted.
Hey,
now you can speak.
So then, why mute at all? Or I'm sorry, vote.
Yeah, no, I mean
that's I have every time I.
That's the thing is, I think you either feel compelled to vote or not. In my opinion, why vote at all is because you recognize the fact that even though your voice is relatively insignificant, you've been given a voice, and that in itself is a right that you should want to exercise. Because a lot of people don't even get that. Even, yeah, you have the choice to, but even if our votes are basically meaningless, the fact that we have to worry about our votes being manipulated is in itself a huge benefit of living in a democratic society.
Democratic Republic?
Yes, to me, that's the reason to vote is, could I look somebody else in the eye that lives under a dictatorship and say, like, yeah, I just didn't want to? Like, it is a right that I intend to exercise. And when I vote according to my conscience, not what I think some party's going to benefit. Because if my vote doesn't matter, I might as well own my own vote.
Right. But if you're not going to go out and educate yourself on the candidate,
don't bother.
Then don't bother going out to vote. In my opinion, like if you're just going to vote, like you said, red or blue, just because it's red or blue, or just because it's not red or blue, don't bother. Like, just stay home. You're not doing anybody a favor, in my opinion.
At the same time, it's your right to throw away your vote, and also most of the people that do vote aren't educated. So what would it hurt to just get everybody's vote? We're all pretty much the same level of uneducated. There's probably less than 4% of the population that would be educated on the issues that they're voting about.
What would it hurt?
About every level that you're voting on the ballot. Even if you know about the presidential issues, do you know about your district issues? Most people are, I would say, generally, even the people that think they're educated, most people are actually kind of ignorant to a lot of the things they're voting on. Yeah. So I don't know. I would encourage more people to get out and vote, even if they're not educated, because most people really aren't.
But what would it hurt you? What hurts is when you get people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the legislation, and who knows absolutely nothing just because people voted for her because she was cool and hip. No education, no clue what she stood for. She said some cool flowery stuff and cool hip stuff and posted a lot on Instagram. We're going to vote for her. Yes, I get it. It's our right, but I'm not saying don't vote. I'm saying please go educate yourself before you do vote. Please know what you want, first of all, and what that person actually stands for, whether or not they're a freaking moron before you go vote for them.
Ideally, yes, but I don't know. Like back before the internet, the way that the presidential candidates campaigned was by going around and making acquaintances and
kissing babies,
fraternizing with people, kissing babies. Like it's always been about like public perception, not really that much about the issues. I mean, very occasionally something might be important enough to sway a vote, but I don't know. Instagram's just the latest way to get yourself before people. So I don't really. I mean, obviously, I would prefer people get voted based on their character or what the issues they stand for. But at the same time, I don't see that that's really much different than it ever has been.
Same for Donald Trump.
Yeah, exactly. That's why people voted for him, because, he was a TV star. I know him. I've heard that name. Trump. Yeah, he was on Twitter. Yeah, he got himself before a lot of people.
He's on Twitter.
He made a spectacle of himself when he was running. Like, it's always that way.
So, Nathan, you're saying even if you don't know or don't care about any of it, you should vote and just scribble in a circle, see what happens.
The thing is, we don't have a charactocracy, a meritocracy, an aristocracy. Like, we have a democratic republic. So if it's going to work, all the people need to get their voice in there, even though I would disagree probably with most of them. The fact that that's how our system is supposed to run, everybody should be voting. It sucks that the majority of the people don't care about the issues. They're going to vote out of ignorance, but that's our system, so we might as well try to let it work.
I disagree, but that's just me. It's fine.
We both get to vote.
That's right. And I might. All right. Well, we're pushing 2 hours. I think we're pretty good on all the main topics. I think it's been.
I didn't even get to talk about my politics.
Craig, go. You've pretty well sprinkled it in here and there. We all know what you think. You're wearing an American flag, Abraham Lincoln shirt, and you've got a Marine Corps flag on your wall.
He's got some badass sunglasses on.
Craig, do you hate the blacks?
He's a gun-toting Republican Nazi.
No, I still stand by my political agnosticism that both parties, all parties are kind of full of shit. Like publicly, politically, they're full of shit. There are some stances that I agree with or don't agree with that I think we should lean more to. And as far as kind of like what Nathan was saying about libertarianism, I agree with more about what libertarianism is saying, but in today's society, in the U.S. society today, I don't think it'll work. I don't think you can just hit a reset button and expect things to be different.
On paper, it's great,
Yes.
but there's more than a million. There's an infinite amount of variables that have to go into this to make that work. On paper, yes, 100%.
Do I think we should have to be forced to pay 30% of our or pay for income tax? No, I don't. But do I think America, as it is now, will survive without taxes? No, absolutely not. We have to have taxes in order for America to keep moving forward. It just has to be there. You can't just say no more taxes. People just pay for it. It just doesn't work. As far
Let's give it a
as
shot.
we'll see how that goes. Now,
I'll
ideally,
I'll stop paying taxes. You let me know how it goes.
I have my own social economic views that I think work best, in my opinion. And the only thing I think I've got out of going to college, I haven't learned anything really towards what I'm actually going to school for, but I'm going to business school. The one thing I did get is I've solidified my stance on socialism not working. Socialism doesn't work. Capitalism works. Like I'm more in support of capitalism now than ever before, because I think the markets generate themselves, and the government should not do that. They should not try to generate the markets or regulate markets to an extent, because they just are not capable of it. I heard yesterday in a class they were talking about commercials and ads and stuff, and the U.S. Army, you know, their big flowery, like fancy, like join the army ads where people are climbing mountains and stuff like that. Do you know how many dollars per person that they recruit, how many ad dollars they pay per person? What would you guess?
$3,500.
It's like $160,000 per recruit that they bring in for those ads.
What's that called in business? Like
Return on
what?
Return on
investment.
Well, no, like how much you have to pay per customer acquisition or something like that.
Yeah. So imagine you're a business selling a bottle of ketchup, and every bottle of ketchup you sold, you spent $160,000 on advertising. It just doesn't work. And for some reason, we think that these people can regulate like regular markets when they are spending exorbitant amounts of money on stupidity like this, when they could be outsourcing their ads and advertisement and stuff, and probably spending a shit ton less money. But I think capitalism is the way to go. Ideally, on paper, I would like to live in an anarcho-capitalist society. I would like to live in that environment. Do I think it would work? No, I don't, because people suck. And it's the same with socialism. Socialism works in the animal kingdom, like bees and stuff like that, and like the hive mentality, where everyone comes together and does their part and things get done. Does that work with humanity? No, it doesn't. Same with anarchy. Like people, Cole or Nathan, one of you said people need a certain amount of governance. I think it was Nathan. People need to kind of be told what to do. I've had this discussion with you, Dan, where you said, should we arrest people just for drunk driving if they're not hurting anybody? Yes, we should, because they're going to eventually hurt somebody. In my opinion, I think that, because yes, they haven't hurt anybody when you pull them over and they blow up 1.6 or whatever. No, they haven't hurt anybody. Don't arrest them. But the next time they're like, oh, I got away with it, they're going to go hurt somebody. People need rules and structure to an extent. Do they need the government telling them how to run the markets and the economy and stuff like that? No, because the government sucks at that. So I just think politically it's all horseshit. Like all three of the rest of you have said, none of them do actually what they're saying they're doing.
Ever.
Nobody has our best interest at heart.
Yes. democratic republic, whatever we have going on here, capitalism, it is the worst form of government outside of all the other ones. Like, they all suck, but, it's because humans are involved in every single one of them. And
Yes.
there's always going to be
100%.
the downsides.
100%. Exactly. But
This is the
politically,
one area that we kind of agree on.
yeah, I'd say that. We're
Let's talk
pretty
about
agreeable.
politics more often.
Whenever you have mass amounts of people trying to figure things out, it's gonna have its big gigantic problems, because nobody can, like, the four of us can't agree on the minutia details, let alone gigantic clusters of people just wandering around completely knowing nothing and not feeling like educating themselves or caring at all. Yeah.
Like we've talked about before, kind of what you're saying, the smaller, I guess the more granular you can get on a national level as far as self-governance, like the more successful the whole is. Alexander Hamilton set up kind of the union, the treasury, as a way of helping each state basically have a line of credit so that they could all succeed. But then that basically became a monster of us all, being in the same boat. That's not what it was intended to be. We were states unified, helping each other out rather than just individual colonies. And, as time has gone by, now we're just kind of one big state that sucks. And
Yeah.
I think it could be so much better if we just kind of, governed ourselves and let a lot of the issues that are national just not be a thing.
Right.
Well, if you look on a global scale, we have like regulation, like trading laws and trading agreements where we can easily commute back between different nations and stuff like that with people in the same agreement. Those regulations are great because it makes things easier. And that's how I feel it should be at a national level. The federal government should make laws that make it easier for states to commute between, or sell and stuff between, interstate and commerce between states, stuff like that needs to happen. But as far as saying this is exactly how every state must be, no, stuff like certain things should be left to the state level, and that's how it was designed. The states were designed to have more of the power and making certain laws and stuff, but it's, like you said, evolved into something completely different from that.
All right. Well, any final happy thoughts? Anybody want to talk about something else before we all have to go to bed because we're all old and have to get up and work in the morning? Cole shrugs.
No happy thought.
I have to narrate for the audio listeners.
Sorry.
Best
Just
movie you've seen lately? Go.
Maybe shrug.
I've been watching the Umbrella Academy on Netflix.
Been watching what? Umbrella Academy?
Umbrella Academy.
How is that? Is that
I'm like 3 or 4 episodes in. It's pretty good. It exists kind of in a fantastical reality.
I'm
It's
2 episodes in.
Okay, it's almost humorous how, like, it's definitely not realism. It's almost like absurdism in some ways, but it still grips you as though there are things that matter
And
in
it's
your
by
life.
Gerard Way, so it's great.
Yes, exactly.
It's got that
it's
great absurdness
pretty cool.
to it.
Yeah.
Cole, how about you? What you watching? We got to end on a light note here.
New movies?
Movies, TV, whatever.
Any medium you're consuming, except for that food.
This will play into our New Year's show later on, because you guys, I'll ask you later on, hey, what have you guys been watching this year? And then you'll be like, I haven't watched anything. And then we can at least look back to this and say, hey, you watched Umbrella Academy or whatever.
Oh, there's a really, really awesome Netflix original show called Working Moms.
Oh, I've been watching that too. It's
I've
hilarious.
What is it?
Is it good?
It's amazing.
Yeah,
is it?
It's about like 4 women who like.
Is it a sitcom or a documentary or what?
He almost said broads. He almost said 4 broads.
No, it's not a sitcom. It's like
it's a comedy, kind of.
Just like
Okay.
Park and Rec type shit.
Show.
Sure.
It's like a show. It's not like a documentary style.
It's just a show.
It's a fictional show. So it's about 4 women who, like, I think a couple of them know each other beforehand, but they're all in like Lamaze class together, or like, no, it's not Lamaze. It's like a infant care, like,
Sure.
not sure, but they're all raising like newborns and they have kids, and it's about the dynamics of each of their lives, and just it's super hilarious. Like, I don't know, it's just really well written. Maureen Ponderosa, the chick who played Maureen Ponderosa from It's Always Sunny,
Yeah.
is one of the main characters. She's hilarious.
Nice.
Just the stuff they do, man. The writing is so clever. I highly recommend it.
Cool. Craig, what are you watching?
Currently I'm watching Friends because I like to watch shows that I can completely turn my brain off to. So this is the most recent because I watched Parks and Rec twice this winter, and I watched The Office twice since the fall, and I watched BoJack Horseman, and I watched Arrested Development, which Arrested Development just came out with a new season, which I am getting ready to start the new season of that, which Cole's shaking his head no, so it must be bad.
After the
I've
quit, man, it was so bad.
Well, Netflix took it over, and it kind of went downhill quick, which is surprising because Netflix makes some really good stuff, but they kind of ruined that show for me too.
Did you guys hear they're doing a Breaking Bad prequel movie or sequel movie or something to that effect? Yeah, sequel.
Really?
Did you hear about this, Cole?
No, I haven't heard about that at all. This is the first I've heard.
Yeah.
I'm even up to date on Better Call Saul.
Yeah,
I mean-
I'm not either. But apparently
Yeah, I'm not
Vince
either.
Gilligan's making a movie that takes place after Breaking Bad.
Weird. Which means all the main people are going to be dead.
Well, except for Jesse Pinkman, so it might just be a Jesse Pinkman movie. But I was skeptical, but if Vince Gilligan's into it, like, I was skeptical on Better Call Saul too, and he pulled it through, and it's amazing. So if he's making it, I feel like there's got to be a reason to make it, and it's not just a cash grab.
So
I trust him.
I've also been watching trying to catch up on some action movies because I got some really loud speakers from a friend. So you got to watch action movies on loudspeakers. So the most recent one that I really enjoyed was The Hurt Locker. What?
Porn.
Yes, porn. Porn is great in surround sound. I watched The Hurt Locker, which if you haven't seen it, it's about an army bomb squad. And there's not too many movies that will literally make me sit like in full, like tensed to the point of pain than watching this movie while he's like defusing a bomb and like his friends are blowing up around him and stuff. And it's just like there was another one I watched too, another war movie. I can't think of which one it was, but it was the same way. There's been 2 movies that I watched that I literally am getting cramps because my body is so tense
Craig,
watching
have you watched
this movie.
A Quiet Place yet?
A Quiet Place. I don't think I have.
Go watch A Quiet Place on your surround sound system, because that'd be perfect. What you're describing is exactly the feeling that I got in A Quiet Place, and I've been meaning to watch Hurt Locker since it came out like many, many years ago. But interesting.
The Hurt Locker and the other movie I watch are 2 movies because my coworker friend of mine who comes over and watches movies, he gave me these movies to watch, and I texted after both of them. I'm like, why the hell did you make me watch these? I feel like shit afterwards. Like the endings. I won't give it away, but it's just not usually happy endings. Oh, the other one was with Mark Wahlberg. He's like an Army Ranger, and they get like it's based on a true story, and they get left in Afghanistan or Iraq or something. That their transport gets shot down or something, so they're like trying to fight their way out. Lone Survivor or something like that, or I can't remember, but yeah, that's another one where afterwards it's just like, why did you do this to me? This was so hard to watch.
Well, I've been watching Umbrella Academy and The Office and King of the Hill, so
I've been meaning to watch Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go watch Vaxxed probably tonight or tomorrow. Documentary about why vaccines are terrible. bringing it back full circle to what Cole said earlier about that.
Cole's gonna punch you
Again,
through.
that's a conversation for another day, but it's okay. That's what we do here.
I want to be part of that. I want me, you, and Cole, because I have my opinions on the whole thing too.
It's all
I
right.
will not.
In that echo chamber alive.
It's all good.
So-
Another time, another day. But guys, it's been fun catching up for sure. And we should do it, as I say, every single year. We should do it more often and do it before 2020 in April.
All right.
Anybody want to
think about it?
Anybody want to pray us out?
Cole does.
Cole,
To pray us
Say-
up.
You
say
pissed
the- say the
Cole
final
off by
prayer.
saying vaxxed. Cole is just done.
fuck it. He just turns off his camera.
Even if I try to interject, you won't hear me unless everybody's quiet. I just can't say anything. I can't say it in the middle of what you're saying.
That's a God thing, brother. That's a God thing.
That Dan
God-
sets his
God
thing
dropped
up
you
on
down a
purpose
peg
so
for this
people can't
episode.
interrupt him.
No, not at all. It's just technology. That's a Microsoft thing. So get a Mac. Anyway, we'll leave it on that note. But guys, thanks for being here, and let's do it again soon.
This has been a Goulash Media production. GoulashMedia.net.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.
Hey Downers, if you like this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. But more importantly, go join the Downers Club at patreon.com/The System Is Down, because the evil wizards of YouTube almost never let us monetize anything on here. Thanks.